Hi, welcome back to another edition of the Jacob and Jacob podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hare, and I'm joined with my guest host today, Noah Joffe. Thanks for being with us today, Noah.
No
And
problem. Always happy to be on here.
and we are honored and very lucky to be joined by Miss Renee Washington. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Renee.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, of course. So Renee was a former D1 college soccer player and a three-time All-American, which is very impressive. And now she's a Fox/ESPN analyst. So Renee, before we get into like the serious questions, what's your favorite quarantine TV show that you've been watching or binging?
Oh, that's a great question. I was watching one of your other episodes talking about Ozark. I watched Ozark during this quarantine. But I think my favorite, right now I just started Queen of the South. I'm only on season 1, so I can't fully say yet. But I think either Money Heist or I started watching a show Elite, which actually has a lot of the same characters from Money Heist. I binge watched that, which was awesome. So I don't know. The European shows are really good right now, like Money Heist and those shows that are. So I'm going to go with Money Heist because that had me not sleeping and glued to my TV for the entire time.
All right, so I've only seen Ozark, so I got to ask, favorite Ozark character?
Oh, I had my moments where each Ozark character kind of pissed me off, and I was like ready to throw my remote at the TV. I would say Ruth.
Yeah.
Definitely. All the birds at times literally drove me crazy. Marty Bird, all of them, they literally drove me insane at times because they just wouldn't speak. They wouldn't go in and do anything. They were so like hesitant and So I would say definitely Ruth was my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way she dealt with the cartel and everything, she was crazy. It was awesome to watch. For sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's get right into it, Renee. How did you get into broadcasting after your decorated soccer career?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been fortunate that I come from a sports family, so sports have always been a big part of who I am. And of course, being an athlete, and then I coached. So after college soccer, I played a little bit professionally, and I was playing with Sky Blue and the NWSL, and then was coaching college soccer at Lehigh University for 2 years. And so I've been fortunate that I've worked in so many different areas of sports as well to give me perspective. So when I was going through my entire career as a soccer player, my focus was on being a soccer player. And I had a number of internships, but my undergrad degree was actually in public relations, which a lot of people don't know. Although as of late, I've been telling people more and more that. So by now, maybe they do know. So I was focused on going the PR route and, thinking that was going to be the job for me. And then it was not until I got into grad school that I fully began understanding that I wanted to be a sports reporter and I had to take the leap of faith to really commit to it. So I started doing freelance writing. I started working with the Lehigh Sports Media Department. But I will say, honestly, through my experiences, I really started to realize, okay, I like interviews. I like creating content. I like working to find ways to creatively reach an audience. But I did not like sitting at a desk, working 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 in an office and every day being the same. So as I was going through like undergrad and just trying to figure out what I liked and didn't like from each internship, I remember having a conversation with my then roommate, my junior year of college, like, I want to be a sports reporter. This is what I want to do. And I'm not sure how, I'm not sure if it's too late, but this is what I'm going to do. So it took me a while to really figure that out. And still now, even I work in so many areas of journalism that I'm still figuring out, okay, what exactly do I want to do with my career, since I have branched out in so many ways and worked in a variety of sports, a variety of types of coverage and content. So it's something that I always tell people, you're never really done figuring out what your career goals are. You're always working and evolving with the times to change what you want to do and change who you are as you're changing who you are to figure out what best fits you. So the process of becoming a sports reporter was not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but honestly, the process of more committing to becoming one is what prolonged that, for me at least.
Well, for sure, props to you. You obviously did it. Very successful sports reporter, so
Thank you.
big step. Have you had like a favorite like sport to cover? Because I know you cover a lot of sports.
Yes. So I, of course, loved my favorite sport to play was soccer. And I always tell people also, but my favorite sport to cover is actually basketball. My family is a big basketball family. So I grew up going to Sixers games, New York Liberty, New York Knicks games. I grew up watching the NBA, the WNBA. And so that's been a big part of who I am, just being in a sports household. But my big three really is soccer, basketball, and football. You know, I enjoy covering all sports, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just that I enjoy those the most, and I find myself the most excited covering those games and things. But I've literally covered every single sport from fall, winter, spring, indoor, outdoor, whatever, you name it, I've covered it. So definitely I would say those are my big three, and those are my hopes as I'm continuing to progress in my career to continue to work in those areas.
Okay, so both me and Jacob are aspiring broadcasters in a way. So what do you think the biggest tip you would give, an aspiring broadcaster?
Yeah, so something I've been doing a lot of, even more now during the pandemic, is just having these types of conversations, hosting webinars, connecting with young broadcasters like yourselves, because there's so much in the industry to learn that you don't really know. Even in school, they can't teach you everything, because there's nothing like actually being in the field and actually working and getting hands-on experience to be your best teacher. So, for me, one of the things I always stress is the fact that in this industry, there's so much unpredictable, unexpected things that happen, so many things that happen, that you really can go into a game or into a show or into whatever content you're creating with one storyline in mind, and then you show up and the player's injured or sick or whatever it may be. Or times like now when all sports are shut down, like you just you can't really predict it. It's not something as simple as, I'm going to go and cover this player and this is exactly what I'm going to do. Like, you don't know the outcome of the game. You don't know that if injuries are going to happen or whatever may happen, or if there's going to be a family emergency, something, or even a personal issue. Like, I know I've gone out and covered stories, come back and had like audio issues. How do you deal with that? They don't teach you that in school. What do you do when you go back and you have an interview and you don't have any audio and all you see is, but there's no audio playing, and now you have to figure out, holy crap, now what do? I just spent all this time piecing together this feature story and something's wrong with my audio. So I think the biggest thing about the industry is to be prepared as possible for the unexpected, which is hard in itself because you don't know what to expect. But you just have to be so proactive, so organized, so prepared, making sure you're doing your research, making sure that you're putting in the time. It's not enough to just show up and smile and be on camera. You have to spend so much time leading up to that to really make sure that whatever is thrown your way, you're ready for it. So the preparation piece, I think a lot of people look at this job like it's just such a glory job where you just get to be surrounded by celebrities and interviewing all these big name people, but it's so much more than that. There's so much that really goes into it. So making sure you take time to work on your craft, but also make sure you're putting in the research and the work around it so you can be prepared for anything that happens.
Right.
So normal game, I guess maybe a WNBA game, maybe a soccer game. How much preparation actually goes into preparing for the game?
So the preparation never really stops, I guess. My thing is, whenever I start working with a company, a league, a network, a team, whatever it may be, since I've worked in varieties of roles where I've worked specifically as a team reporter in the AFL or with the Mystics or the Wizards, where I've worked in a league like with the National Lacrosse League, wherever you're working, you have to make sure that you're constantly keeping up with the latest that's going on so that like as much as possible about the players, the team, the coaches, things that are going on behind the scenes. Because if you are just cramming beforehand, it's going to show, versus, okay, I'm going into a game. Here's the storylines that I've been seeing unfold throughout the season. Here's what I'm looking for. And now you have different storylines to kind of pay attention to. And in the event something does unexpected happen, you've been preparing, so you know enough that you can pull from those storylines and the research that you've already done. So, for me, I don't ever really stop preparing. I'm like I don't know, like a nerd about it. Like, I have all these notifications on my phone. I have all these things that are like written down. I'm constantly reading and watching and just keeping up on what's going on so that I'm always prepared to be able to provide the best storylines possible. So for a typical game, though, in terms of the specific preparation, I guess 24 hours in advance is when you're really like honing in on not only just preparing for the game itself, but even having conversations with people, reaching out, letting them know like, okay, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm looking to do. This is what I'm looking, who I'm looking to interview, things like that with the team's PR people, so that going into it, you can have as many things organized as possible. So it's not like you're scrambling at the time of the game. So in terms of storylines, always looking, but in terms of like game day operations, you have to make sure that leading up to it, you take care of all that so that you're prepared as possible.
So it really is a marathon, not a sprint.
It is. Absolutely. Yes. But it's fun though, because it's like for me, part of my preparation is now, okay, what are they saying on ESPN? What are they saying on Fox Sports? What are they saying on NBC? Like, what are the different networks talking about? Reading different articles, paying attention. So I'm watching TV is how I can prepare, like watching what's going on TV. So it's not as much of like having to study as much as it is you're just watching. You're just absorbing all the information, the interviews. Like I know even around COVID-19, I've been watching a lot, like ESPN's been doing a lot of specials and the different updates they're doing with players just to get their perspective and interviews with them, just keeping up, because it is something that becomes more fun if you are invested into it versus it feeling like you're cramming and like studying like you were in school.
Yeah. So on a more serious topic related to your field of work, what obstacles have you had to encounter, or have you ever had to encounter any obstacles, maybe such as like sexism or racism in your field of work?
Yes. Yeah, that's
And
honestly,
how have you encountered that?
Go ahead. Oh, yes. That's a great question. So that's something that even with the climate that we're in right now, the issues that are going on in our country, in our world, they're nothing new to me. Unfortunately, I have dealt with my fair share of sexism, racism, some form of discrimination, even being a soccer player, and soccer is a predominantly white sport. I dealt with my fair share of it there. Right now, as a woman in sports, there are not a lot of there are not a lot of women that are working in positions that are analysts, that are in the booth. It's changing, don't get me wrong, but we're still completely outnumbered. When you look around a game and see the reporters that are there, the photographers, the videographers, and cameramen, we're still outnumbered. And then, of course, as a Black woman, there are more times than not where I'm the only Black person or the only woman or both. So, I've dealt with a lot of it. And that's where, for me, that's one of the challenges that I constantly try to avoid, because I have been in situations so I've only been working full-time for 4 years in the industry, since I had my first full-time job to now. So it's really not that long. But when I look back on where I started, that is something that I had to prove more times than not, because I had to show that credibility that I am more than just a talking head. And I use that term lightly, but it's the truth. A lot of women, unfortunately, are brought on to shows and brought on for the sole purpose of being the pretty female that's like the moderator and the host. And for me, I want to be more than that. I want to be someone that's contributing to the conversation. I want to be someone that's involved in the analysis and breaking down what's going on and helping to contribute in some way, instead of just sitting there smiling. So, from the beginning of my career to now, that's something I've always strived to do, is make sure I'm not just pigeonholing myself to just being a pretty face on camera or a typical female role, or the stereotypes around women in sports. I want to be more than that. So that's one of my biggest challenges, because I don't ever want someone to say that I'm in that position because of, the fact that I'm a woman or whatever. I want to make sure that people look at me as being a sports professional, a sports journalist, not just a female anchor or female host. So I'm constantly trying to make sure that I'm, elevating beyond just the stereotypes of what women in sports are. And also by doing that, hoping to encourage and inspire some others to do the same, because there's a lot of change going on. Even like you guys, you're a lot younger than I am. And here you are having a show and involved in the conversation. It's no longer the times of needing to be 50, 60 years old and an older white man before you break into the industry. You can be a kid. I know a lot of kids and teenagers and young professionals like yourselves that are actively working in the field. There are so many ways to make a name for yourself. So that's something that I always try to continue to move that conversation along, that there's an outlet, whether it's on Zoom, YouTube, social media, whatever it may be, there's a way to get your name out there and be a part of the conversation. So that's the biggest challenge that I always try to make sure that I'm rising above. And then there are, of course, other ones like audio issues and things like that. But for me, it's more important that I'm seen not as just a female anything. I just want to be seen for the work that I do.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that with us. It's like, we obviously, like, that's very important. And obviously, like, look, everyone wants to be seen as Renee Washington, the reporter, or
Exactly.
something else, not just who, like, based on what race you are. So I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Bingo.
So you've covered both college and pro sports. Do you have a preference between the two?
It's interesting because I actually started out in high school sports. High school, college, and professional offer 3 different types of experiences, I guess you can say. And for college sports, more than professional, one of the things that I enjoy about it, and actually it's one of the things I enjoy about covering female sports like the WNBA, is they're just so much more appreciative of your work. I hate to say this, but like the NBA level, you're just one in a million. There are so many people that are out there that are interviewing and talking about and sharing all the things that are going on in the NBA and in the NFL and specifically football and basketball. But of course, baseball, any high level professional sport like that, there are so many people that are having those conversations, that are interested in interviewing them. So you are just another face. Whereas what I felt, and I even felt this in the AFL, because the Arena Football League was smaller and unfortunately now it's folded, but it was smaller. It's just so nice to be appreciated. It's so nice when you're there at a game, at a practice, doing an interview, whatever it may be, and everyone is so excited to see you and excited to just have the opportunity and are like so willing to help. Like, whatever you need, I can help you out. Whatever you're looking for, like, just talk to us. Versus in the NBA where you're just like in a swarm of people and you're just another person there with a microphone. Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest things I enjoy. And then of course for me with college and high school, it's just that rawness. The NBA and professional sports, for the most part throughout the regular season, you don't always get the same excitement as you do in like the postseason, for instance. Whereas in college and high school, every single game is like a championship game for them. You have students, you have family members, like everyone that's there. The stadium's usually rocking, the gym's loud, it's exciting. It's just so nice to see the innocence behind the game, the rawness when you're just playing for the love of the game. You're not playing for a check, and that's the most important thing. So yeah, I think that's honestly the biggest difference for me that I enjoy is the change of experience and the switch of the excitement around it. I hope you can't hear there's like someone cutting the grass outside, so hopefully that's not getting picked up.
It's all good. You talked about the importance of preparation a little bit. Do you think there's a difference between, preparation for like a college game or, like a pro game?
Yeah, definitely. So the pro level just has a lot more stipulations in terms of like where you can go, what you can do, things like that. So you have to, of course, prepare for that reason, just to make sure that you have clearances. Whereas with the college level, it tends to be, if you're there, like if I'm there with ESPN, I'm good to go wherever I want. I'm good. Like, that's it. That's enough. So I think from the logistical side, it's taking care of those little details. And then in terms of the players and stuff like that, again, at the college level, they do tend to be a lot more willing to allow you to jump in on, any pressers beforehand and call coaches or whatever it may be, just because you have more access to them. So I think the preparation from that side is just a little bit easier on the college side, but on the NBA side, it's easier in the fact that because everybody's covering it, you don't really have, like, you can get information from anywhere. It's just a matter of verifying your sources, of course.
Yeah. Obviously, like in college, the players try much harder on defense and offense because they're trying to make it to the next level. But as you see in the NBA, the players don't really try on defense as much as they try on offense because they're trying to get the highlight reel up. They're trying to obviously show off and stuff. Well, rightfully so because they're in the NBA. Do you feel that when you're doing an NBA presser compared to a college presser, like the atmosphere is more different, just like the games are more different?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that at the professional level, they are so used to those. So it's a lot easier to get a good soundbite, get a good interview, get a good story because the players are expecting of it, and they've been doing it for so long at this point. Whereas in college, and I definitely dealt with it in high school, but you still see it in college, you'll still get a player that's shy and not really good with interviewing and not really good on camera. And so for that reason, it just forces you to have to be mindful of, and the preparation piece actually comes into that, kind of knowing, okay, this is someone that's not so great on camera, so be prepared for it. Be willing to have to like pull more out of them versus someone that you can just ask a simple question to and they can take off with it. So I think, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest differences, too, is just the fact that at the professional level, the players are expecting it more, used to it more, and therefore a little bit more spoken and articulate in their answers for the most part. There will be times where you get a question and they're just like not really interested or not in a great mood and don't want to answer too. That happens, but they still understand that they have to do it. That's not exactly the case with the college level.
So Renee, last question before we let you go. If you could do one interview with one athlete or sports person in the world, who would it be and why?
This is easy. LeBron James. I still have yet to interview or meet LeBron James, and LeBron is my favorite player of all time, of all sports. So, one day, and then that'll be the moment that I'm like, I made it. Life is complete.
Better than Michael Jordan?
Yes, I get into that argument with people all the time. LeBron James is my GOAT.
Okay.
I have no problem saying that.
I'll take. So thanks for being on the podcast, Renee, and make sure you check out, she's on ESPN Plus, and she's also a reporter for Fox Sports. So make sure you check her out this season. And thanks again, Renee. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been fun being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for being on.
Of course.